Our project is an assistive speech device. It's by Jonathan Ortiz, Taylor Lita, and Ricardo Sanatan. This device can assist people with Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease affects the nerve cells in the brain that produce dopamine. Parkinson's disease symptoms include muscle rigidity, tremors, and changes in speech and gait. After diagnosis, treatments can help relieve symptoms, but there is no cure. So first, we're going to discuss a little bit about the problem with people who have Parkinson's. So deep down in your brain, there's an area called the substantia nigra. Some of the cells make dopamine, a chemical that transfers messages around in your brain. And when you need to scratch an itch or kick a ball, dopamine quickly carries a message to the nerve cell that controls that movement. And so when the system is working well, your body moves smoothly and evenly. But when you have Parkinson's, the cells of your substantia nigra start to die, and there's no replacing them. So eventually your dopamine levels drop and you can't fire off as many messages to control your body properly. Early on, people with Parkinson's won't notice anything different, but as more and more cells die, they reach a tipping point where they start to have the typical problems. So Parkinson's is a widespread disease, and the Foundation's Parkinson Prevalence Project estimates that 930,000 people in the United States will be living with Parkinson's by 2020, and further increasing to 1.2 million by 2030. And this doubles from back in the 80s. Parkinson's disease has far-reaching effects on the brain, resulting in motor, speech, language, and cognitive impairments. Alterations to muscle tone and control affect the muscles which underlie speech. 89% of people with Parkinson's will develop voice problems, and 45% will develop articulation problems. The goal of this project is to assist people with hypophonia, particularly those with Parkinson's, to communicate clearly with others. Instead of using a hearing aid that gives off white noise, which is the only thing that's around right now, to force the affected person to speak louder, we're looking to create somewhat of a special microphone. The microphone will take an audio signal from the speech, process it, and output it as a clearer and more amplified pronunciation of words. So our solution to this problem is one that's different, one that's innovative, and there's no need for the patient to strain their voice and try to speak louder like they would with a regular hearing aid that puts white noise in the ear. The patient doesn't need speech therapy, although it does help if the patient speaks clear, the device works better. And then it's its first type of solution to date. So we are solving this problem with a neural network. And you can see this block diagram, it shows the process. So originally we have the patient's voice, in which we turn into essentially an image, a spectrogram. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then that's passed through a convolution neural network, then through long short-term memory, and then it becomes an inverse spectrogram, so back to voice, and then it goes through regression. And on the bottom side, we have a clean voice. So we have the affected person's voice who has Parkinson's, and then we have a normal voice, something like mine, that comes in through, I guess, the other side, if you will. So we have the clean voice. It normalizes the clean voice, turns it into a spectrogram as well. That is also passed through the convolution neural network, and then those two voices, after they've been passed through the network, are compared. After they're compared, the algorithm will recognize the difference between the affected patient's voice and the clean voice and try to make the affected voice more like the clean one. So a spectrogram is a visual representation of frequency versus time. And you can also see density, which will be something like the volume of voice. And so you can see the red on this slide is the affected person's voice. And it only goes up to about 500 hertz. And it's not very strong, as you'll see on the next slide. So on the left, you can see we have the same spectrogram, a person with Parkinson's voice, and now on the right we have my voice. Saying in these two slides, we're saying the exact same words over a course of 5 seconds. And as you can see, my frequency reaches about 3,000 hertz, where theirs only reaches about 500. And you can see the density of the spectrogram, the red, is much stronger. A convolution neural network is generally used with images, so that's why we had to convert voice to a spectrogram. Now the input will be the affected person with Parkinson's voice, and the clean signal, my voice, viewed as a spectrogram. Now this will be passed to the hidden layer. And the hidden layer, there can be tens or hundreds of them, learn to detect different features of an image. Filters are applied to each training image at different resolutions, and at the output of each convolved image is used as the input to the next hidden layer. So there will be tens or possibly hundreds of hidden layers. And each layer is used to detect different things. So for us, we'll be detecting frequency, we'll be detecting pitch, and we'll be detecting timing. The convolution neural network will be trained using MATLAB and then implemented using a Raspberry Pi. So our process has been, we interviewed a Parkinson's patient, we collected hours of speech from that patient, we created an algorithm to snip 5-second samples of audio. So we got lots of audio from this patient, and then we had to break it into 5-second segments. We created an algorithm to do that. We gathered clean speech from me of saying the same exact thing in that 5 seconds that that person says. And then we generated spectrograms for each sample, and that helps us to create a neural network. Now, we haven't created the neural network yet. We're still capturing data because our project kind of switched to this neural networking stuff halfway through the semester, and so we're behind track right now. The project is not finished. So as I said before, this project is the first of its kind, and so it requires many thousands of 5-second samples to be said by the patient and to be said by someone with a clean voice, so that they can be turned into spectrograms and train the algorithm, the deep learning algorithm. Now, this is the process we are in. This project will be continuing past this current semester so that it can be finished and put into action and hopefully help people around the world.